The Russia collusion hoax is a false conspiracy theory held by elites in the Democratic Party, the media, some parts of the Republican Party that taught Americans for many years that Donald Trump was seditious. He had colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 election. This was widely held. It's actually a belief that is held by a majority of Democrats, according to some polls, in part because this is what the media said was the truth. There are three major groups of people that are involved in spreading this Russia collusion hoax. The first one is the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton. These are the groups, her campaign and the Democratic Party were the groups that purchased the Russia collusion conspiracy theory. They did this by funneling money secretly through a law firm that hired someone who's actually an unregistered foreign agent for a Russian oligarch named Christopher Steele. He then subcontracted out with someone who was suspected of being a Russian agent by our government. He was someone who was investigated by the FBI for being a Russian agent. That guy used his contacts in Russia. They brainstormed, they got drunk, and they gossiped. They talked hypothetically about things that could be true. He then reported that back to Christopher Steele, the bagman for this Russian oligarch, and then that guy put it into reports. Now, sometimes he actually apparently took information from his subsource, embellished it or invented it, or maybe the source is lying that he really did give this false information. It's a little bit unclear. Those reports had two primary audiences. The first audience was the American media. So they wanted to get the American media to report this conspiracy theory that they had dreamed up, that Donald Trump was a traitor who had colluded with Russia and that he shouldn't be elected. But the other group were investigators in the federal government. And so we know that there are some people who picked up on these reports in the FBI, Department of Justice, State Department, also some indication of other intelligence agencies being involved. And this was all part of normal campaign operations where you come up with dirt or things that you can have explode at the least opportune moment. So Hillary Clinton deployed this Russia collusion conspiracy theory that she and the Democratic Party purchased in late October, before the election. It didn't go very well for them. The stories weren't, it's a little preview of what happened since then. The stories weren't well substantiated. They didn't have much of an impact on the actual election because people were debunking them even as they were rolling out. But there were like 4 big stories that came out all at the end of October. So what happened then is that Hillary Clinton lost the election. That was the first phase of the operation, was prior to the election. Once she lost the election, according to reporters who were covering her campaign, she quickly pivoted to a new plan to question the legitimacy of the election by blaming collusion with Russia. And so the media had been just utterly humiliated by their poor performance in the campaign season. They had told Americans that it was essentially an impossibility for Donald Trump to win the election. They never did a particularly good job of explaining what the issues were that led people to vote for him, and they were very, very embarrassed. So they kind of clung to and began believing this conspiracy theory of Russia collusion, and that's what happened after the election. At the same time this is going on, the FBI is discovering that even though they had used these made-up reports to secure warrants to spy on an American citizen connected with the Trump campaign, gave them the ability not just to spy on this American citizen, Carter Page, but anybody that he was talking to and even who those people were talking to. Well, they discover in December of 2016, before the inauguration, they discover everything they need to know that the dossier is made up. They nevertheless continue to use it to spy on this American citizen, and they also begin criminally leaking things to support this theory that they know to be not true. So there are all sorts of other aspects about this, about the incoming National Security Advisor Mike Flynn, who they had been investigating based on this dossier. They'd found nothing on him. They were about to close the investigation, and then there's some interesting things happening with people high up in the FBI and Department of Justice, also Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and they reopen the investigation into Mike Flynn. And so there's this lengthy period post-election, but for the next 6 months or so, where there are all these leaks happening, suggesting that this story really isn't crazy. The dossier itself is put out there. The fact that the dossier was taken so seriously, we're supposed to believe, that it was briefed to President Obama and incoming President Trump, that's leaked. Anytime an American talks with a Russian, no matter how legitimate the conversation is, it's painted as something nefarious by our media. And things just develop into such hysteria that after Donald Trump fires James Comey for, among other things, privately admitting that Donald Trump is not under, or privately claiming, I should say, that Donald Trump is not under investigation while publicly insinuating the contrary, Donald Trump fires James Comey, a special counsel is launched, and then the next several years are full of continual leaks of information alleging collusion with Russia. Turns out, at the end of the day, Bob Mueller is unable to find Donald Trump colluding with Russia. He's unable to find anybody with the Trump campaign colluding with Russia. He's not even able to find a single American out of the hundreds of millions of Americans who colluded with Russia. Pivots to this idea that the real problem was that Donald Trump complained that he was falsely accused of treason. And so he tries to send a report to Congress that the real problem is that, and that he, by complaining loudly, had obstructed the probe, even as everybody admits that there's nothing to it.